Today we are going to be going over, I think, objectively speaking, not my favorite, but objectively speaking, the best Lattafa line. True. I say not my favorite because that Fakar line is baller, but this is a viewer requested video, and we're going to do it. We're going to talk about all four in the Bade'e Oud line, but also we're going to be unboxing and reviewing another Lattafa fragrance at the end of Qaa'ed. So stick around. We're going to do that at the end of this after we get done with all these. So first off, the Bade'e Oud is very similar to Al Haramain's Amber Oud with the names. All of these have oud in them, in the name, and almost none of them actually have oud in them in the fragrance. The reason why they call it Bade'e Oud, I believe, is because of this guy. Their sort of flagship release was this. To this day, I think it has the most sales. This is Oud For Glory. It's a clone of Oud For Greatness by Initio. So I think that's why, but that's where it ends. The two of them are clones, and the other two kind of do their own thing, although some have said Sublime resembles Forbidden Apple or something like I can't remember. So, anyways, sorry, I keep adjusting. I just shot the other video and my legs are asleep. Okay. I'm going to get into the Bade'e Oud and I'm going to give you my opinions on each, starting from what I think is the worst, and that is Amethyst. Amethyst was up against it. It was up against it for me, and I didn't realize this at the time. I didn't realize I was going to dislike this fragrance. First off, there's nothing wrong with the presentation. They're not the prettiest bottles, but they have this wraparound that's really pleasant. Gold atomizers, nice caps, cool reflective base, and the boxes and the packaging are super cool. Really like it. This fragrance, people have no idea what they're talking about oftentimes. This is a clone of Initio that's fine and dandy. On the comments on the page of the product said it was a clone of After Effect. So I was like, After Effect? I looked up After Effect. And this is my fault. I believe the comments. I looked up After Effect and like, that sounds great. Let's do it. This is not a clone of After Effect. In fact, this is a clone of something very different. Still similar to, still Initio, but it's a clone of Atomic Rose. And there's some problems with that. First off, I was going to get this anyways to complete my Bade'e Oud collection, but I was really excited because I'm like, After Effect, that's great. And I think I even passed it on probably to some poor sap that I talked about in my comments some before I actually got it, but just remember I was lied to first. So here's the thing about Atomic Rose, and this, I want to be generous to this fragrance because I'm going to give you my opinion. That's what it is. It is my opinion. If you were to create a fragrance that was the exact opposite of what I like, it would be Atomic Rose. If you were to put together the pieces of the notes and the breakdowns of things that most disgust me, it would be Atomic Rose. To the point where I would rather wear Secretions Magnifique, which is a fragrance whose notes are semen, blood, saliva. It is a salty metal spoon smelling fragrance. I'd rather wear that than Atomic Rose. It's not to say it's not objectively a decent fragrance. I hate it. It opens up with pink pepper, which I despise. I just dislike it so strongly. And then it has two different types of roses in there. Very bitter. I'm going to go ahead and give it a spray. A light spray. Super. So first off, with these Bade'e Ouds, at least this one has a super alcohol blast. You're going to have to let it sit for a second. Sweet. But it does have a little bit more of a bitter type of vibe to it than I think a lot of rose fragrances. I'm going to give it another one. It's just not my cup of tea. Is it a bad fragrance? No, that's not at all what I'm saying. I'm saying that I would rather run nude through a field of needles and barbed wire and then bathe in lemon juice and salt water afterwards, because this fragrance just drives me crazy. But that's not to say this is a bad fragrance. Atomic Rose is a great selling fragrance for Initio, and the major thing too, the major takeaway is that Delina by Parfums de Marly is one of the most loved perfumes on the market right now, and it resembles Atomic Rose in a lot of ways. So for women, yes, this is woman's fragrance in my opinion. All of these are unisex, but this really does lean a lot more feminine. I just can't stand it. What would I recommend instead? If you want a rose-based fragrance, Toy Boy. I will always recommend Toy Boy more. Next. This is Oud For Glory, and like I said, the most sold, at least of right now, of this Bade'e Oud line. This is a clone of Oud For Greatness by Initio. Initio, very expensive, $300+ for the fragrance. And by the way, if you do want a side effect clone, I believe, I think it's Fragrance World that makes one. I think it's called the After Effect. And that's supposed to be pretty good, but I haven't tried it. But I do really like Side Effect. It's the one Initio fragrance that I do really like. So, Oud For Glory, Oud For Greatness, woodsy type fragrance. Oud in its natural state is very sweet to me, and people complain about it. They say that it smells like a wet dog, among other things, fertilizer, poop, lots of things. This doesn't go too heavy with that. There's enough notes in there to break down that to where you're not just getting oud, oud, oud. But this is not a fragrance that blows me away. As far as that goes, I think there's better fragrances. I think Oud Wood is a much superior fragrance to Oud For Greatness. But it's not bad. It's just not a memorable scent to me. And it's a fragrance that I have never worn outside of the house. Yeah, that Atomic Rose, man. It's almost like sweet candy, almost. It dries down a lot sweeter than it initially comes on, just because that pink pepper evaporates. It's not bad. It's just not great, in my opinion. Atomic Rose, I'm trying to be like objective and give you a good rating. It's like an 8 out of 10. I think it's objectively, I can see why you would like it. It just hits all the wrong notes for me. Yeah. And I'm actually going to give this Oud For Glory a lower rating of 7.5, just because I feel like it doesn't project or perform very well. But it's not. It's one of the least offensive oud fragrances you can get, so that has to earn it some props. This next one, I think, is the second best, and this is Sublime. One of the reasons why I think that that this is the second best, and not the first, because I do really like this fragrance, is its limited usage. This is a crisp red apple type fragrance. When I first got this fragrance, it smelled awful because they just brewed it. It had not macerated, it had not matured, it smelled synthetic, and it was just not great. I went back to try it about a month ago and was blown away at how much better it was. There's a couple different ways fragrance companies do apples, and this is unique. This is much more in line with a Bath and Body Works than typical niche fragrances. Typically, when niche fragrances utilize apple, it's something like Angel Share or Apple Brandy on the Rocks, where the apple is going with a boozy note, or the apple is going with a gourmandy type of dessert note. This is not that. This is like you're walking into Bed Bath or to Bath and Body Works and, spraying the body mist. Obviously, with this being an eau de parfum and not a body mist, this is going to perform. This is going to project, whereas those are not. But that's the kind of vibe you're talking about here. This is a very feminine leaning fragrance, one that I would not wear as a man unless I was layering it, meaning I was picking another fragrance to wear with it, something, maybe a strong leather or a strong tobacco or suede, and using this as a counterbalance with the sweetness. As a woman, I would love this fragrance. Women, absolutely, I think it's one of the best, and that's why I have to give it second best as a whole. Other than Oud For Glory, this is all unisex, but very feminine leaning line. Very feminine leaning. Which means that the best one, in my opinion, is going to be Honor and Glory. It's the white bottle. And I think most reviewers, if they've talked about Bade'e Oud, has probably been this one. This is, I think, an original scent, although I would have to look that up because I do know that supposedly Sublime is pretty close to another fragrance, another apple fragrance, but I believe that this is a fairly original fragrance and only a couple years old. 2023 when it was released. Everyone was talking about it. It was funny because it was actually released at the price point of all the others, which is around $20 American dollars. And then this one came out and was released around that price point, and it sold so well that it's like $30 now, and it is the most expensive one just because of the demand. But truly, very original fragrance, unlike these other ones that tried to clone it. Lattafa did something original. Lattafa makes really good original fragrances. I think it gets shadowed by their clones. I think Armaf is much more of a limited house. Armaf does clones, they do it well, and they don't really try to branch out that much into their own thing. Lattafa does. It's just overlooked with their clones. But this is a pineapple brulee. Pineapple, I've heard it both ways. Creme brulee does not have much of an aroma. And I don't know if I've ever said this on the channel before, but I used to be a private chef, and I used to do dinner parties, go to people's houses and do 10-course, 12-course dinner parties. And one of my staple desserts was creme brulee. It's very simple, but it looks very complicated because you burn the sugar on top and you brulee it, and it looks like you put a lot of time and effort, but it's just a custard. And it just doesn't have much of a fragrance to it. So when I I think of, the pineapple brulee, I'm thinking less of pineapple and creme brulee and more of like pineapple, burnt pineapple, very sweet, aromatic. When you burn sugar, you get that flavor really comes out and becomes something else. But this is very gourmand type of fragrance, where it also has a fair amount of vanilla, which is basically, a lot of what creme brulee smells like. So then you also have a bit of a cashmere in the base and cinnamon in the mids that comes across a little bit, but it's really well blended. Occasionally you get a hint of that sandalwood, which I think is kind of a weird note to throw in there. I would have preferred it just to have been left gourmand with no sandalwood. I think the sandalwood does it disservice, but it's a great fragrance. The only hesitation or whatever that I can give you is just the fact that, one, I still think it leans feminine. Two, it is definitely leaning towards a winter fall type fragrance, so limited uses. And I guess three, and this applies to this one and Sublime, but especially this one, its performance is off the charts. This is a two spray and you're done. You could even get away with one. So if you spray it and go into close quarters, if not everybody likes it, they're going to spray you, regardless if they like it or not. So I think it's one of the top 5 best performing fragrances in my collection. I think it's just such a good performer, but that can also be detrimental. So those are the only 2 little caveats that I have. But in this order, I would say Amethyst, and you could even mix those around with Oud For Glory. But I would definitely say that number 2 is going to be Sublime. And number 1 is going to be your Honor and Glory. I think Honor and Glory, here's the difference. I think Honor and Glory should be in everyone's collection. The other 3, man, if you like rose-based fragrances, maybe. If you want a clone of Oud for Greatness, or if you like apple-based fragrances, I might make the suggestion. But people who come to me and say, $25, $30, what do you recommend? I almost always say Honor and Glory. It just is that good. So if you're leaning towards getting one, start with that. Even if that's your only one, get Honor and Glory for sure. So that's it for that. Thank you for that suggestion. We are going to open up this one. This is Qaa'ed, and this on paper is going to be my dream fragrance, and has all of the rich, complex, gourmandy kind of notes that I love. So we're going to try it out, and I just basically use this video as a way to try it out. I've had it for probably, I have a whole box of Lattafas that I haven't tried for probably like 5 months. They're just so cheap, so what happens is I'll go to place an order. And I'll place an order from somewhere, right? And I'll see that this Lattafa's on sale, that Lattafa's on sale, and I'll throw it in the cart, get free shipping kind of thing. And this is one of those, but I think out of all my Lattafas waiting to be opened, this has the best chance of me really liking it. And this is also a fragrance that I think has flankers now. So anytime a fragrance has flankers, I'm assuming it was because it was successful. So we're going to try it out. Really cool case here. It's actually like a plush leatherette type of case. Let's see what it looks like. Of course, with the leatherette, it's very sticky. it's actually really cool. It's really cool. It reminds me of like a Yahtzee cup, like a leather Yahtzee cup, or there was, what was it, not Rummy Cube, it was not backgammon. Is it backgammon? I don't remember anymore. But here it is. Super gaudy. Yes, it is. Lattafa bottles are super gaudy typically. And look at the color of that liquid amber, gorgeous. And one of the not problems, one of the reasons this is plastic too, by the way. One of the reasons why I wanted to open this now as well is this is a winter fall type fragrance, and winter is here and spring is coming soon, so I'm not going to have a whole lot of opportunities to wear this if I do in fact like it. So let's go ahead and spray it. Qaa'ed. I believe Qaa'ed. 1, 2. Oh, instant sprayer. We'll do 2 more. Or do 2. Not 2 more. Okay. One good thing though about letting the Lattafas chill is they have the ability to macerate and mature a little bit more, which a lot of these Lattafas need. They're very popular and they get shipped off very quickly, and Lattafa does not age. I was on Qaa'ed the other day. Qaa'ed, they triple age their Amethyst for their Absolute, and I'm like, man, that's crazy. So, you know, there is a limit. It's not like the fragrances just get better and better, infinity, but you allow the fragrance to macerate, to mature, to steep, and good things will happen. So they do make, like I said, they do make an intense version of this one. This is not that, so let's see here. Very spicy. Opening notes, very spicy. Cardamom, definitely. Ever since I became very familiar with spice and black vanilla, I always pick up that note right away. Sandalwood, which I also pick up right away. It's supposed to have a boozy sort of cinnamon to it, and I'm not getting that a whole lot. More earthy tones. Oh, I just got the leather. Amber for sure. And I'm getting a little bit of sweetness, and I'm assuming it's from the oud. Almost every Middle Eastern fragrance is going to contain some form of oud. Oud is a Middle Eastern ingredient that you will find in almost every single type. And actually, with the surgence of the Middle Eastern fragrances and the popularity, I feel like oud is really getting a forefront. Whereas oud before these Middle Eastern fragrance houses became so popular, it was it's very luxurious, very expensive, but more than that, it just wasn't really a thing as much, unless it was like Oud For Greatness in these niche houses. Now it's like oud's everywhere. So much so that Mason Francis even had a oud mood, which is just oud. It's a very simple, basic fragrance, and charges over $300 for it. It's because oud was foreign fragrance to a lot of people. Not a lot of people familiar with oud. And you don't get oud super strong on here, but like, I'm not getting that cinnamon at all. This is not a gourmand. This is a winter spice mix. I'm not getting a whole lot of vanilla, but it's there. I get a little bit of that. I don't expect the leather to come out until I put it on skin. The amber is really present, and the sandalwood and the cardamom. I'm not getting any kind of citrus, but I'm assuming there's supposed to be some citrus in there. I'm just not getting any. Okay. Well, you can't win them all. It's not bad, but it's definitely not taking my breath away. It's Lattafa puts out so much. Maison Alhambra was, from what I understand, one of their chief that they try to do some, they're much more of a quantity. I think they have this mindset of, if we put out 1,000 decent fragrances, chances are one of them, like this, is going to go kind of viral, which means that they put out just a lot of similar fragrances with slight varieties, kind of just waiting to see. And there's thousands of reviews of Qaa'ed, so it worked. You know, it made them a lot of money, but it doesn't blow me away. And for $20 or whatever I paid for it, I think it was even less than that. It wasn't. I'm not upset about it, but it definitely did not blow me away. I definitely stick with Honor or the Bade'e line, but yeah, so that's it. Check out this line if you are going to check out the line. Honor and Glory all the way. So, thank you all. Hope you enjoyed this video. I'll see you on the next one. Till then.